All right, and welcome to the show, everyone. You're back with another episode of Seminoles Sideline 365. Of course, this is KB, and I have a Bruce next to me. Welcome back for another episode. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm doing good, KB. How's your day going?
Good. And if not to confuse everyone out there, the reason, and if you're not aware of what we were showing on the screen, that was indeed our boy Nick O'Leary. And tonight we're talking tight ends, which is why we only felt it right to feature the legend from the last, probably the best tight end we've had in the last 15 or 20 years, Nick O'Leary. So we thought it was only right that we start the show with a video from Seminole Productions highlighting everything he did and all the glory him and Jameis brought to the university. So with that, like I said, that's what we're going to be discussing tonight, the breakdown of the current tight end situation. Anything you want to start off with that before we dive into it?
Yeah, I thought that was appropriate. Good pick on showing Nick O'Leary. I mean, to me, I watch this guy play a lot. I know you watch this guy play a lot. He's in 2013, when we go to the national championship, win the national championship, Nick O'Leary has 33 catches for 557 yards and 7 touchdowns. Of course, he had Jameis Winston throwing him the ball, but it's more than that. And then as we talk about the tight ends tonight, this is the type of production, and this is the type of production and guy we need. And you saw in those clips, he runs over people. He can go down and get deep. He can, he can get off guys and get it in open space. I mean, I realized we had a different quarterback. We had elite running backs. The line was totally different. It's complex. I get that. But that's what we're talking about in terms of how does he stack up, with somebody in the room today, And in 2014, even though we didn't win the national championship, he won the John Mackey Award. 48 receptions, 618 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Pretty good production over 2 years. Okay. So, of course, he gets drafted. The Buffalo Bills has a short career there, but a legend here at Florida State.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you there. And I think, to your points, he was the last guy that I remember, and he was a part of that all-star. Every person on that starting line on both sides of the ball, offense and defense, I believe, got drafted. So he was part of something special. So I think it was a mixture of that, of him being surrounded by a team that clicked and being surrounded by talent all over the field, which helped him. But he was one of those players. He was just a gamer. He was physical. He knew he didn't wear gloves. One of the last players I feel like on the receiving end of the ball to not wear gloves. He was just an old school type player, physical, like I said, physical again, wanting to knock people's helmets off at the ball. So he made it work. He didn't have long arms. He was more of a stocky guy at 6'2", 6'3". But he just made it work somehow and fit perfectly into that offense, into that culture they're building. So
his grandfather was the great Jack Nicklaus. So he probably plays a little golf too.
And the stat, that was the theme of every ABC broadcast of Florida State game. They had to repeat that 15,000 times. So if you didn't know that already, now you do know that. But yeah, it's a great segue into that conversation, because since Nick and what he bring, I can't there's been no tight ends that I can recall that's had an impact like him. And I think that's been something that's hurt this team for a while, is that you don't have that threat that can break off the line and hurt you down the field. And I think Florida State, for themselves, defensively have been burned by teams that utilize the tight end. You've seen Miami produce 2 to 3 NFL caliber tight ends over the years. And it's something that's burned our defense from time to time. Even Florida, when we play them, they've produced some very, very decent tight ends over the years. And it's something that Florida State just really hasn't been able to click on since moving on from Jimbo and with Willie and now with Mike Norvell. And I think it's something that a lot of the other channels.
Let me interrupt one thing. Is we did have a couple of guys prior to Nick. Okay. In fact, there were a few guys who had good production in the Bobby Bowden era. One that comes to mind is a guy named Jim Tyson, but he was back in '69. That was prior to Bobby Bowden. Had some good years. And a guy named Gary Paris. Now, those names probably don't mean anything to you, but they do to me because I watched them all the time. So there were a series of guys, and Gary Paris had an 8-year run in the NFL. He had an 8-year run. So we had some guys we put into the league, but since Nick has left, the only guy I can think of is Izzo.
Yeah,
Izzo.
Ryan Izzo. But he wasn't really even a star he didn't even reach his full potential in a lot of people's minds here.
Right.
And I think, so that's the thing with him. He was a great athlete, but he never really, to your point, I don't think he ever hit his ceiling or what we thought he could be here.
So who's the closest guy we have in the room right now that's going to give us this type of production?
I think it's a question. I think they thought Trey McKitty could be that before he transferred on to Georgia. Because he had, when Billy brought him in, I think they thought, he was a highly touted recruit, with athletic, had a lot of the receiving skills she thought you could get out of a next star receiver. Just didn't turn out. Transferred to Georgia for his final year, and he did not much there. But for the current room, it's been a struggle. They haven't really recruited the room well. There hasn't been a ton of depth. The only guy that's kind of stuck around is Cam Mcdonald, the kid you got out of California, who has basically the size you want. He's 6'4", 242. And he's established his system. I mean, he's been here for, I think, 4 or 5 years now through 2 coaches. And he has had some big plays, but he's never kind of been that 400, 500 yard, that Nick O'Leary, where he's kind of been a keystone in 4 to 5 balls per game, really that consistent threat during the course of a season, which is, I think, like I said, something we've been missing. He's going to be the starter this year, no doubt. There's no one that's going to, in my opinion, compete with him.
Yeah, he's a redshirt senior. And I don't understand why he's not getting the production, because Mike Norvell prides himself on this tight end type of offensive weapon. We're using 2 tight ends, using 3 tight ends sometimes that he did in Memphis for not only blocking reasons for running lanes, okay, but also, it sets up perfect short passing game as well.
Well, I think I think that's some of the issue, though, is that he's been here 5 years now, almost 5 years now. In the last previous with Woodley's teams, there is a major liability, and there still is some at the offensive line position. When Mike came in, knew you couldn't protect the quarterback. You couldn't set up these longer tight end type plays that take time to develop. So you didn't have the ability to really use the tight end as much. You needed them to block. And that's one of the things that Cam hasn't been the strongest at. And that's, I think, one of the things that places like Tom Lock Nation and Knowles Game Day, they really point this out really well. And I agree with them, is that his liability does come in his run blocking and his overall blocking. And so,
well, how do we, let me ask you this then, because we're going to get into some other guys, and we'll finish up on Cam, but Cam had 24 balls last year for 243 yards. He was the top tight end pass catcher on the roster. The other guys, there's a big separation. So he's got to be the number 1 guy going into the spring. This is his money year. This is his last year. And so he has to really do it. He's a big physical guy. I don't understand why he can't block. If he's been there 4 or 5 years, he can't block. He's not even going to get a look at the NFL.
I didn't say he can't block, but he's a liability. I think it's consistency. And that is something that Mike, I think, cherishes and prioritizes is, can you consistently do something? We need consistency on the field, whether it's receivers blocking, whether it's in run protection, pass protection, you need consistency. And if you're not doing that, I can't put you out there for every single snap. And we're going to bring in guys, whether they're less talented in terms of catching the ball and as pure athletes, but if they're willing to pass or block consistently on the line to make up for some of those holes we may have in our talent on the offensive line, I think he valued that a lot more over than the more athletic guy that could catch the ball for you, because he knew if you don't have a solid line, you're not going to be able to set up those longer routes for the tight end.
I agree. So you're suggesting that he got less looks, less attempts because of he was needed to help out the offensive line.
I think especially earlier in his career. Last year I think you saw some progression. I think last year he had he was a 5th leading receiver on the team. And he had similar production to the year before. It dipped a little bit.
And I don't remember him from a fan perspective dropping balls where you couldn't rely on him.
Yeah, no,
I think he was targeted. He caught most of those balls. I don't have those numbers, but
no, I don't think it was that at all. I think, like you said, the last 2 years have been pretty great, pretty good consistently in terms of yards. He's hovered around that 260, 240, 2 touchdown mark, but he hasn't. I just think it's that liability in blocking that is
okay. So when he
him
goes
off the field.
Okay, when he goes down, who's the backup? Who do you put in? Who's Mike put in?
It's Preston. Unless someone dramatically, dramatically over the spring shows himself. But I think Preston Daniel is someone we saw a lot more than we thought we were going to last season. And some of that is some injuries, and like we said, overall issues with depth in the position, just not having the talent.
He has basically no production
but it's
at all. So he's unproven.
But that's the thing. He's willing to block, and that's the big thing that Mike. So the production, that's the production you don't see though. Is he can make a big block that springs, a huge run on the play. So it's do you value more a guy that can hold a block and spring a running back, can hold a block on the outside if you put him out so he can on a screen pass, on a bubble, whatever it is, and hold that block for you so you can make a big play? Or is it the guy that's going to do that sometimes and, you can sometimes get in the ball? I think Preston can catch the ball. We saw that a couple seasons ago when he made a couple of big plays with it. But like you said, he's not the athlete that say Cameron Mcdonald is, or maybe like one of these, young guys like Jackson West or even Wyatt Rector. Wyatt Rector is the guy they brought in from Western Michigan. He's a junior now, a Richard Jr. He got a couple of catches and had some goal line plays just because he is a better athlete, but he is that converting quarterback. So I once again, I don't see him being put much into the fold. I think there's some packages where they use his size to their advantage and probably will do a little bit more. But once again, I would love to see him succeed because he did bet on himself. He transferred in, made that conversion over from quarterback to tight end because he bought into the system. Do they use him more over Preston Daniels? Can he block? That's the biggest thing holding him back, in my opinion, is that the guys who are consistently going to block, regardless of how big of an athlete and how great their catching ability is, are the ones that are going to be on the field, and that may hinder the plays you can run then. Because
but let me question you on that. If in fact Mike wants guys who can block, and he says a fifth-year senior, basically a redshirt senior, Cameron McDonald is not a great blocker, and he hasn't learned to block or doesn't desire to block. Well, wait a second.
I didn't say that.
Wait a minute. I'm just saying, if based on your logic there, why do you bring in a Wyatt Rector? Why do you bring in Brian Courtney, the freshman? He's a quarterback, and I hear this. Well, they'll learn to block. Really? Quarterbacks generally have not blocked from little league up through high school.
Okay.
So all of a sudden they're going to turn it around in a D1 Power 5 and start blocking guys.
Brian also played linebacker in high school, so I don't think he has an aversion to hitting people. So I think that's a bad example.
Well, we'll find. Yeah, we're going to find
out.
He's
also 6'3", 230, so he has the size.
Yeah.
And if with playing,
and I'm not saying he can't. I'm not trying to rip any of these guys. I'm just saying, based on the logic of it's quarterbacks. I understand why he brings in the quarterbacks, because they're great athletes and they're going to think well for him. They don't have to handle all that quarterback stuff. They can handle that. But yeah, if they can block, then they have a real opportunity to be productive.
Yeah. To me, it's like I said, it's about consistency. It's not that guys can't. It's can they do it at a consistent level? And some people are very talented at many different things, but can they put it together consistently? Whether it's any sport, can they hit consistent? Like some guys can have an up and down, hit for 300 and then down to 270 in 1 month, but can they do it consistently time over time? So it's not about talent. It's can they be in the mindset of continuing to do it play after play?
This is a pretty crowded room, right? This is a pretty crowded room. We got a lot of names in here. So let's go through some of these other names and figure out, because it's really a question mark. This whole room has this big question mark on it. So we've got other guys. We've got sophomore Jackson West. What about Jackson West? What about redshirt sophomore Markdrone Douglas?
So I think with Jackson, once again, he's prototypical type of guy or size that you want. He's like 6'4", 240. He can line up where you need him. He can play a variety of positions. And he has the speed and size that you want to be that next athletic, player at that position, that can be a playmaker. But he's an unknown. He didn't see much of any time last season, no catches. He was a true freshman last year, so that's sort of expected. But he's an unknown fact. Nobody knows what to make of him yet. He was one of Mike Norvell's initial recruits, so we trust Mike knows who he wants to bring in for that tight end room, and he specifically said, "I want Jackson." Recruited him. He was a little bit under the radar recruit, I believe, when we got him too. But we made it a promise that we want, or made it a priority to get him. So I think it'll be what many of the sites are saying is that spring is going to be very big. Can he make a big step in his development? What does he show during spring practice? What does he show during the spring game? And does he make a huge step in terms of his learning of the playbook? And really, do they start to make packages around him? Can he make that next step forward?
Okay, in Douglas, we have a 6'4", 276.
Yeah.
Now, there's a blocker. That's like having another offensive lineman there.
Well, basically. Yeah. I think, and that's what you're seeing for a lot of these guys that Mike brought in. Preston Daniel, 6'4", 250. Mark Heston's, 6'4", 276. Even Cam, being from the old administration, was 6'4", 242.
Yeah, he's put on. I've heard he's put on some good muscle over the.
Yeah, all these guys are good side. Brian Courtney, 6'3", 230. All these guys are good sized dudes, but like you said, Douglas at being 276. He has the frame because he was a former basketball player, right? Yeah. So he's one of those guys like you remember the guys that make the transition. They have the hands, they have the athletic ability they have everything you want. Now it's about, okay, he came off a big injury. He still hasn't been able to kind of get back on the field in terms of playing at the highest level with Florida State yet. But he's one of those projects where they said, okay, you got hurt in high school. We recruited you still. You're a former basketball player, like Antonio Gates type player where, and there's a lot of examples now in the NFL of guys who've made this jump. Once again, another guy that needs to show consistent growth from last season, the fall, to now winter development and spring practice. What does he show that he's made a jump from last season, this season, in terms of off the field training development? And has he started to put it together? Has he fully come back? Has he learned the playbook? Is he ready to actually compete for time? So like I said, I think they're going to run a lot of guys in the rotation. I think they're going to make plays for certain people. I don't think Cam's going to be on the field every single time. I think they're going to put the right people in based on A, can they block consistently? B, if they can do that, then we will fit them into packages that fit this.
I think that's the whole offense that we've been talking about in our programs, that there's a lot of gadget guys here. Where do they fit into the puzzle for this specific situation? They're not an all down type of guy. And then you got another sophomore. You got Kobe Gross.
I think he's the biggest. He's the one guy that doesn't fit.
He's a little unknown.
I think he's little. I think he's just little. And that's not take away, but he's the 6'1" guy in the room. He's the only guy under 6'3" in the tight end room. And I don't think he fits into what they see as I think there was question, I think there were some rumors that he may switch positions at some point, maybe last season, kind of stayed there, didn't see the field really at all. I think he's one of those guys, and we keep talking about this after each breakdown. There's going to be probably one or two players, probably most likely one, that are going to transfer out.
I think it'll be more than one. I think it'll be.
I mean, from this room,
2 to 3. I think it'll be 2 to 3.
Well, whether they transfer out or switch positions, but yeah, I think he's one of the prime guys for that. Just because he doesn't I don't see him as a redshirt sophomore making the jump through this depth chart.
And then you've got a couple other guys, Austin White and DJ Daniels. I really don't have I don't have much on them. It's hard to I've never seen them really on the field that much to understand anything about them or what their potential is. But I think, a couple of guys like this, Gross, White, Daniels, these guys could be candidates that if they want to play and they can't play here, they're going to leave after the spring once they see what that depth chart looks like. Now, here's the question I put to you is this. Do they want to bring another guy in from the portal? Is there a tight end out there available? I haven't seen any at this point in the portal.
No, I don't. I think they may have looked at there was one guy that came in. Well, last year there was a guy that came in the portal from, I believe, FSU, and they kind of struck out with him, but he ended up kind of not turning out. There's been one or two, I think, guys that they looked at that were high impact guys that were like complete packages of. They have proven production, skill set to come in, plug and play essentially. But if it's anything that looked less than that, it wasn't worth speaking to, because any other projects, they have plenty of projects on this team that they just need to develop and need to show whether they've got it or not. But other than that, no, I don't think it's worth taking another shot on a guy in the transfer portal, because you have enough projects that are in development right now. So I don't think you have other concerns elsewhere or more insert plug and play position players that are going to be available.
I think it would be a very it would impact morale. You bring another guy into the tight end room. You've got several guys there now. You can't even find room for these guys to play, and you're going to bring another guy in. Well, some people would say, well, I need productivity, so if I can find the right guy, I'd bring him in, because I just don't have anybody there that I see can play.
Well, that's why I said
we're not saying that. We're not trying to rip anybody. We're just looking at we said at the start of our programs that we're going to ask the hard questions, and that's what we're doing. So we're going to find out here as we start spring ball, and I think that's scheduled to start around 5 March.
Yeah,
this week
they released a schedule. We shared it last week, but it should be starting up either late this week or so it'll be interesting to see what comes out from those things. And then you got the spring game in a couple of weeks I think the 3rd week of March. So that'll be awesome to watch. And of course, we'll be covering that, afterwards to see, break down some analysis of that. But I think it's pretty clear that there is, the established starter is Mcdonald. But I think, like I said, they'll continue to rotate players out into different packages unless Cam's blocking has gone superb over the offseason. They can trust him to play 80 to 90% of the snaps. But I think there is, like we talked about, there is a talent on this team where they should be able to gadget some of these players up in the red zone. You have the size. A lot of these guys have hand skills that you should be able to put one or even two of them on the field if they're blocking as well enough, put them out there and come up with, you'll have a lot of size between the receivers and the tight end that you could have multiple 6'3", 6'4" plus receivers with Johnny Wilson on the field that you can create some matchup nightmares if you can get some of these guys to put it all together, which would be very, very interesting to watch. So a lot to get excited about. That's what I'm excited for this.
I agree. I agree with a lot of what you said. We may not have a guy. We may not see a tight end get 40 balls for us in Mike Norvell's offense. It's not structured that way.
Not yet.
And the tight ends who come into this program have to understand that they may not be targeted a lot. But, I know a lot, if they want to go to the next level, sometimes it's about blocking. And if you can excel at blocking and show you do have a few hands, they're going to take a good look at you. Okay. And I think that's important to point out too. But of all the areas that may be question marks on this team, I put the biggest question mark on the tight end group. And I sure hope that we can get this group under Coach Chris Thompson to come through, because we definitely need some production there. And I think they can help out their quarterback. We're not looking for a Jameis Winston O'Leary combination. That was a very special combination, not likely to be seen.
Yeah. So I think, we put the question up on the channel. Do we have a 400-yard receiver this season from the tight end position? I think the answer to that is no. I don't
agree.
See that happening.
I agree. I think it is no. And I just don't think we have that in the room now. We may not have it for the foreseeable future. The offense is just not set up that way in that regard. So
yeah. The only thing I'll caveat is that, and one thing that you did see is that, you had Jordan Wilson last year, who was a great blocker. He ate into a lot of the snaps of Cameron Mcdonald, and he dealt with a couple of injuries here and there. But that's the thing that we keep reiterating. That was a huge example of that. Jordan Wilson transfer came in, was a willing blocker, and that's why they brought him in, and was able to still catch balls too at the same time. He wasn't the best receiver, but that wasn't why they brought. He still caught 132 yards for 11 catches, and I think, and no touchdowns. But he was on the field because he blocked, and he also got some balls because of it. So it'll be interesting to see if who's that second guy that really shows up and says, I can do both. Because they can do that, then I could see them surpassing combined more than 400 yards. Because we didn't see that last year. We saw under combined 400 yards in the tight end position. But we need a compliment to Mcdonald, I think, to see if we get some explosiveness out of the position. So, that's going to be our breakdown of the tight end position. Is there anything else from your end that you would like to wrap up with?
I just want to wrap this program up tonight, and to say, just in quick fashion, that I'm speaking for myself and KB and for our program here, and that we stand with the people of Ukraine in their current crisis. They're under great stress and under tremendous pressure. They're being relocated, they're being killed, and we stand united with the people of Ukraine.
Well said. Well said. All right. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and end it the night there. So we hope everyone has a great rest of their week. We're almost to Wednesday. So no matter if you're watching this tonight, tomorrow, or the weekend, we hope you've had a great week and continue to have a great week. And let us know in the comments, like the video, dislike the video, add a comment, subscribe. All your feedback is taken, and we appreciate it. So thanks again for joining Seminoles 365, Seminoles Sideline 365. We appreciate your time and have a great day. We'll see you soon. Thanks, y'all.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.